5-0, 3-0, 4-0, 4-0, 3-0, 2-0, 2-1, 1-0, 6-0. These are Celtic's results at home since the end of November, with Bobby Wales' handball-assisted effort for Kilmarnock the only blot on Brendan Rodgers' copybook in the last 9 games at Celtic Park. And while that might seem like a formidable record, it's worth noting that Barry Robson's loss-win, loss-win, loss pattern points to a Rovers victory, and also bear in mind that the Rovers are unbeaten in this year's Scottish Cup. So there's that to hold on to. Thank you for joining us on the Oh No 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 podcast as we preview this Scottish Cup 5th round tie. My name is Duncan Cameron, and today I am joined by some of the usual suspects. We have Leslie Mabon. First of all, how are you, Les?
In the words of Def Leppard, let's get pumped.
This could be a silly one. We've got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm all good. I mean, it's after all, it's one of these games that everybody calls like a free hit. So, I mean, I'm a wee bit gutted that I can't get to the game, but no, look forward to still watching it on the telly, and hopefully, I mean, if we can score a goal, great, because it just ruins what you've just read out there.
Yeah, are you still planning on watching it is it an Irish pub in Amsterdam?
Aye, so Ali off the podcast is actually coming over here mainly for the Super Bowl this weekend, but because we're into our NFL and stuff like that. But he we realised obviously after booking like the Rovers will probably thinking going into the Falkirk game we'll possibly lose, so we'll have a free weekend or it'll be the Morton game away or something. So Ali's like, right, I'll come over for the Super Bowl, that's fine. And then, now it's obviously away to Celtic and he lives in Glasgow, so it would have been perfect for him to get to it. But so we're heading up to Amsterdam to watch it in an Irish bar, because there was a sports bar that I would normally go and check, but they've said they don't have Premier Sports, so they're not showing it. So yeah, up to Amsterdam to watch it, and it could be, well, if we somehow pull off the absolute miracle it is a win, we'll try and get our version of it, the boy that's a Kilmarnock ship in Spain going mental after they beat Celtic.
I love that wee guy. I think he's brilliant. Just properly like behind enemy lines. Get out of me, Mona Kelly. I love that guy. We've also got Robbie Weir as well. How are you, Robbie?
I'm only here for the Josh Rae chat, to be fair.
Duck out 10 minutes in. Good stuff. And we've got Blair Hawcroft as well. How are you, mate?
I'm delighted, mate. I'm going to watch us getting pumped for the posh seats.
Yeah, corporate stooge.
Prawn sandwiches and 6-0 defeats. Bring it on.
Rod Stewart's autograph.
By the way, I'm just living in the vain hope of seeing Rod Stewart. That's it for me. He's not going to be there, but
It'll be some like C-list Celtic fan. It's like,
yeah, I kind of see Rod coming out for the Scottish
some
Cup.
Some jobber off River City or something.
Is there not? There's one that like gets listed in the Red Tops as like being a Hollywood actor or something. Like it's something like Gianni Capaldi, and he's like the third most famous Capaldi. Like, just nobody's heard of this guy. He's apparently an actor, but he's also a Celtic mad fan. And it's like, all right,
Snoop Dogg's a Celtic fan, as you know. He might be there.
Snoop Dogg just owns hundreds of football jerseys.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what is a slight spoiler for later on? I've been looking at celebrity football fans today, and I think your Celtic ones, you've got the guy Jay Baruchel, who was in various kind of teen comedies about 10 years ago. You would maybe recognise if you saw him. Basically made a documentary about how he's a Celtic fan, but he's from like Michigan or something like that. And apparently Tinchy Strider's a Rangers supporter. So who knew?
Staunch.
Yeah.
No idea who Tinchy Strider is, so that's fine.
Just very odd. There's a quote from him where he basically says that he's a Rangers supporter because he really liked Barry Ferguson and Ali McCoist. It's like, surely that's the other way around. You weren't like a freelance Barry Ferguson fan. It's like, actually, he does seem to play for the same team every week. I'll just watch them. Really strange. But yeah, watch this space. More to come on that front. Yeah, as you say, Robbie, we do have a bit of transfer chat before we get into the the horrors that might await at the weekend. Yeah, before the transfer window was gently latched on Monday, the kind of news broke that Josh Rae might be on his way from St Johnstone, and then it was confirmed the next day because it's a domestic loan. It's one that could conceivably have happened kind of later into this month. Robbie, right, we'll stick with you, seeing as you've no interest in talking about the rest of it. What was your immediate reaction as that news broke?
Yeah, I was quite surprised when the Courier article initially came out. It wouldn't have probably been the area that I thought we would have looked to strengthen first, albeit I get why. It does kind of feel like with the fan base in general, I think, like, not everyone, but I would say that in general, I think there's become more and more skepticism over Kevin Dubrovsky in terms of how we're using him going forward. Personally, I still back him, but at the same time, I do understand why people are quite sceptical as to like what's going on. You can really see the argument of it brings in competition, but also at the same time, it raises questions about, like, with regards to confidence in terms of if you bring in a keeper on loan from St Johnstone, admittedly one who's tried and tested at this level before, like, really, you're getting an underconfident keeper on loan based on what St Johnstone fans are saying, but then also as well you're sort of harming Kevin Dubrovsky as well at the same time. So I don't know if he'll get chucked straight into the mix, but yeah, it's as I say, it wouldn't have been the area that I would have looked to in terms of moving forward on the pitch, but you know, I'm not the person to make these decisions, probably for the greater good of everyone, because I am just a random jobber on the internet talking on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that, mate. I'm also quite pleased that you're not making any decisions. With the greatest of respect.
No offence taken.
Scott, give me your thoughts on the Josh Rae of it all, please.
Yeah, I'm also just a little bit surprised that, I mean, that was the sort of signing that we were bringing in right at the end of the window. Kind of like Robbie, I can see the thinking behind it. I genuinely thought that we were just going to kind of roll with it the rest of this year and then deal with the goalie situation in the summer. Kev has been undoubtedly a very good goalie for us in terms of winning points last season. Even at times this season, he's pulled out some incredible saves, and nobody can deny the shot stopper that he is. But I think it's came sort of become more even obvious this season his flaws, and it just, for me, the thing, like, as I say, I like Kev as a guy and I think he is a good goalie, but there is just things that I just think there's stuff there that he can be, and this is nothing against Robbie Thompson, by the way, there's stuff there that can be coached out of him, but he doesn't seem to be adapting or changing his style, which I don't know obviously what goes on Monday to Friday when it comes to Kev and stuff like that, but I just worry why is he not coming to, I'm not saying come for every single cross, that's just not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that he should be at his height and his size commanding his box a little bit more than he is. And also when it comes to like kicking and stuff like that, yeah, I think stuff like that is pretty much, you can be training that most of the time. You don't need to really train his shot stopping ability. I mean, that just seems to be natural to him. So that side of the thing, I can see why maybe Barry Robson in the first month that he's been in the job has maybe looked at, he thinks that he needs another goalie in the door. I also don't think it's the end of the world anyway. I still, for what it's worth, I've got Kev in my team for Saturday anyway. I just, for now, I think it's his jersey to lose. And I think for anything, it's actually a good sign in terms of he's now got proper competition for his jersey. Because other than that, I mean, Andy McNeil's been there for the whole time that Kev's been at the club, and he's played only when Kev was injured. He's never once looked like pushing for the jersey. So I think now bringing in somebody that's known at this sort of level and played at this level and played pretty well for Airdrie last season as well, I don't see it being a bad decision overall.
It's an interesting point there. Blair, is your suspicion that Josh Rae has come in to provide competition for Kevin Dabrowski, or do you think Josh Rae has been brought in as effectively a replacement in the short term for Kevin Dabrowski?
Personally, I think the former. I do think it's competition. I don't know. I think a lot of what gets said about Kev, and Duncan, you and I kind of disagree on a lot of things, to be fair. There's a Venn diagram of our beliefs at Raith Rovers, and Kevin Dabrowski lives in the overlap, I think. I like the guy. I'm a big fan of him. Yes, he has his flaws. Name me a championship goalkeeper that doesn't he? I just think he's one of these guys who he kind of... What's that? It's that old Meatloaf line of living your life like everything louder than everything else. Like, everything Kevin Dabrowski does is kind of big and showy and in your face, and it's what we love about him. And for me, if you take that out of his game, he probably becomes a worse keeper for it. So you've kind of got to take the rough with the smooth a little bit. So I'm really pleased, actually. I think it's a really clever bit of business. I think it's a good signing. I think it provides a bit of competition. I don't think for a second that Kevin Dabrowski's fragile enough to be put out by it. I think he'll relish the competition. I think he'll relish he'll probably relish the doubt, actually, as much as anything else. He strikes me as one of those kind of players that likes to kind of prove people wrong and do you know what I mean, prove his own worth. But Robson's already shown in his short time at the club that he's happy to drop people if they're not performing to his expectations. I think Ewan Murray's probably the obvious example of that. Like, he's not... I mean, he's not a world beater, he's not terrible, but he had made a pretty poor game against Falkirk in the league, and hasn't set foot on the pitch since. So Robson's obviously shown that if you're not performing, you're not playing. And Kev was probably the only player in the whole squad who that didn't really apply to. And I think this changes that. He has also, I think it's worth pointing out, he has already this season played hurt. He's also played, I remember, I think it was the Ayr United game. It was either the 3-0 away to Ayr or the game before it, which would have been at Livy at home, the 2-1. But he played one of them with a really heavy cold. You could see him physically coughing the whole way through the game. Like, not... And do you mean, but anybody, I'm choked with it now. Like, the thought of being a goalkeeper in the Championship feeling like this, like, no thanks. So, if nothing else, it provides us with a bit of backup as we go through the rest of the season. So, no, I'm quite pleased, but I hope it is... I'd hope to see, as Scott says, I'd hope to see Kev keep his place and this be the you better perform or else kind of feeling rather than you're done.
That's very much where I am with it as well. I think it's sort of trying to read into the motivations and all these kind of things. And if it's a case that Barry Robson's come in and after 4 or 5 games gone, like, I need another goalkeeper, that's priority one, get me somebody else. I think that's a very different situation. If he's basically gone, look, we've only really got one senior goalkeeper, backup hasn't played a lot of football. St Johnstone have got a guy who's clearly needing to get out on loan. Why don't we go and get him? He's going to give us competition. It's going to fill a few different roles. Mostly, the other part that maybe we've not touched on is if you're trying to sort of cover for Kevin Dabrowski's weaknesses. Les, you introduced us to the Swiss cheese model previously. I think Kevin Dabrowski and Josh Rae are quite... They've been sliced quite closely together from the block of cheese, in as much as I think their strengths and weaknesses are quite similar, if that's not stretched that metaphor too far. There's the huge differentiator that Josh Rae is very renowned for his distribution and his kicking, playing the ball on the ground. I think we can safely say that's not in one of Kevin Dabrowski's kind of top 3 assets. But if people are looking for someone to come in and be very sort of proactive when it comes to coming for crosses, I don't think that's Josh Rae's bag in particular. I think he's relatively... I can't think of what a nice way to say erratic is. I'm sure there is a word for that. Eccentric, maybe. He's the kind of guy you see him kind of dashing out of his goal sometimes. He's picked up a couple of red cards, in his relatively short career as well. So it would be different if you were bringing in like a Jamie McDonald type goalkeeper, like a guy in his late 30s who's on the bench for Dundee and wants to get out. I think that would be different. That way you could look at as more of a kind of mentor type thing. Whereas this is, I hope it is just genuinely, it's just direct competition. And yeah, Scott, I'm the same as you. I hope it's still Kevin Dabrowski in goal. I hope it's a case of, look, it's his shirt for now, and then 2 or 3 weeks of games and training when they're both there, you can then make kind of an educated decision on who you think should come in. I hope it's not a kind of swift dropping effectively. Les, how do you feel about the whole situation?
Maybe of a slightly different opinion in that I have a feeling that Josh Rae has been brought into play. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that. One is the timing of it. This is a domestic loan, so there's actually no urgency to get this one over the line quickly, unless St Johnstone were trying to free up a space for deadline day. There wasn't really any urgency for this to get over the line when it did. The fact it's happened when it did kind of makes me wonder. The other thing as well, I was looking at some of Barry Robson's interviews from the last few weeks. He's talked about communication not being something you can teach, although I think that might have been aimed at you and Murray more than at Kev. And he's talked a lot about clean sheets as well. And I've just got the feeling that Robson's come in, he's looked in the goal-peaking division, he's taken the lid off the jar, and what he's seen hasn't passed his sniff test. So I think he's gone out there, and I think Robson is, as we know, he doesn't mess about. I'm not sure about the cup game, but I would not be surprised at all if we see Josh Rae in goals before too long. The other point as well being Robson had been talking in the papers about budget. And, we don't have a lot of money available. We've got our budget tied up in injured players. I mean, granted, you're not going to go to the press and say we're looking at bringing in a new goalie, because that's effectively throwing the guy you've got under the bus. Any other position on the pitch, you can say we're going to bring somebody in. You think fair dues. It's an extra body. So you're not going to be going out saying, we're actively hunting for a goalie. But I think the fact he's done that when we've been told budget is quite limited, and when they've got it over the line when they have, just the mood music that gives me is that Josh Rae has been brought into play.
You certainly think he must at least think he's got a good chance of playing, either because he's been told or because he's confident in himself and thought, I can go and win a jersey there. He's not leaving St Johnstone to come here and happily sit on a bench for 4 months or whatever it is. So definitely one to watch. Robbie, as you said right at the beginning, I don't think anybody had that at the top of their list in terms of what they were expecting.
Again, from the club. Yet another deal that's came through the door that nobody's really seen. Just to go back to what Blair mentioned, though, I think it is Big Kev's probably a good analogy in terms of how the club is overall. Like last season, full of celebrating with the fans, everyone enjoying it, everyone giving it big licks, talking about how good it was. And then this season, it's not quite the same. It's just obviously tailed off that bit. People getting a bit more tetchy about stuff online, about things that are happening, and just whatever seems to be happening at the moment. They can't seem to do it right one way or the other, and there always seems to be sort of flaws, which again, I can understand people being a bit tetchy given the sort of predicament that we're in at the moment in terms of league position. But yeah, it's just I think it's probably a reflection on where the club's at overall just now.
I think Kev's standing with the fans is probably, I think the way you would describe the club there is probably quite akin to it. Like the way that the people kind of talk about the board and the decisions that get made and stuff. When you're winning every game pretty much in the last minute, and you're sitting top of the league going at the Tannadice at the end of the season. Like, I can't remember who it was that said in the group chat earlier, but something about they could have like shat in a bag and everybody would have thought it was tremendous or something. Like, the board could have done fart in a radio, that was it. They could have done anything. They could literally do anything. They could do no wrong because we were winning games. And I personally feel that there's not a huge difference. There's probably a bit of a difference. And there's probably stats that will prove I'm talking absolute nonsense. I don't feel like there's a huge difference between Kev this season and Kev last season. It's just that Kev last season was making the odd mistake here and there on a winning team. And now he's making the odd mistake here or there on a team that loses quite often. And so all of a sudden, people are just that little bit less charitable. Like, last season you kind of go, oh, what a trumpet. But what about that last minute goal? That was brilliant, wasn't it? Like, whereas now, he's costing us games now and again, but it's because we're not scoring enough goals at the front end of the pitch, and there's a whole load of things that kind of go into it. But I don't feel like Kev is the reason we are where we are, if I'm being honest. I just don't. I really do not think he is.
No, me neither. I don't think he was ever. He never got close to the top of my list of things that are a big issue. Same thing with, to be honest, like individual defenders as well. Really, I think there's guys who at times have underperformed and guys who maybe haven't done what you would have expected from them. But I think there's been overreaction almost in a lot of different places. I think it's like you're not a million miles away. I think that's actually, De Rossi's a good example of that, where on an individual basis, he's probably not doing that much worse than he did last year, but it's everything else all around it. And it really is. It's that totality of everything that when you start trying to really hone in on individuals, it's like, well, a lot more than just one person has gone wrong effectively. And even at that, like, I think it's probably worth recognising again that it's a very kind of whiplashy season. And, remember saying just in the last couple of weeks, like, it might not have been while we were recording, I just remember saying it like on a video call, that like expectations, they get raised really quickly and then they kind of tail off quite slowly. And I think that also has a bit of a correlation where it's like you win a game and lose a game and win a game and lose a game. Like you win a game and it's like a really immediate high, but it gets like eradicated immediately by the loss that then follows up. So like we beat Hamilton 3-0 and then we lost to Dunfermline. And I was like, I was as bad as anybody for this in terms of like the reaction to each. But it's almost like the reactions to the wins last for as long as they last, whereas the reactions to the losses accumulate over time. Like you sort of, they don't dissipate away. They always just bundle up. And it's obviously more complicated than that. There's a lot that goes into it. It wasn't just a case of being like, oh, we won 3-0, everything's amazing. We lost 3-1, everything's terrible. There was justification behind both of those arguments. But yeah,
just in case there's any Celtic fans that have decided to tune in, losing games quite regularly is shit. I
thought you were just going to explain the concept of losing games quite regularly.
Yeah, it's shit. It does happen to the rest of us, and it's shit.
If you're old enough and if you're a Celtic fan, you might remember the 90s when you did quite often lose games.
Get your bingo cards out, kid. That's the first box off.
I was saying that actually to one of the guys at my work who's like a Celtic fan. I was like, because it was literally on like 27th of November. I was saying to him like about it. Yeah, all right, okay. I was like, but probably from like a Celtic fan's perspective, if you looked at it from their side, it's probably a good reminder of like, we're in a very, very good position right now of just having complete dominance over this league. Financially, we've just got like absolutely juiced to the fucking gills. It's just ridiculous. It's just, not really.
We're worried about the fact that a goalkeeper can't kick a ball.
And we're talking about the sheer basics. You look across our league and it's just some clubs are fan-owned and going through financial turmoil. Some clubs aren't fan-owned and going through financial turmoil. And just,
I know
just
I know
bizarre.
I bang on about prize money all the time, but it had completely passed me by that Celtic had signed this guy, Sinisalo, to be the backup goalkeeper from Aston Villa. And they bought him. Bear in mind, the backup goalkeeper. He's not played yet. I mean, he may play on Saturday, but they spent reportedly £1.2 million on him, which is double what the Rovers got for their league prize money last year. It's for a goalkeeper they don't want. Scott Bain is still there. I don't know if Brendan Rodgers knows who he is. He's just like, who's that guy that's kicking about all the time? Where is he? Like, he's your third choice goalkeeper.
And the thing is, like, if the first choice goalkeeper got injured, they'd just go out and buy another one. They wouldn't put Sinisalo in goals. They'd go out and like get Wayne Hennessy or Scott Carson or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just a £1.2 million guy to come on as a training dummy in the event that Kasper Schmeichel gets injured. Chance would be a fine thing.
Is there not every chance that 1.2 million would buy you pretty much a controlling stake in Wraith Rovers FC? Like,
Just
can't be far off
Wraith
it.
Rovers FC,
Oh,
pretty much.
Didn't tell Peter Wall that. That's a terrifying thought.
It's another world.
Aye, it absolutely is.
It
And
really
then,
is.
and then they'll complain the same thing when they get to the Champions League, and they complain about because Bayern Munich have probably spent £18 million on their second choice goalkeeper.
I can't wait for them to blame us though. They got beat up by Munich because we were so shit on Saturday night. Sorry.
I love how if you ever search for Wraith Rovers on Twitter, sometimes it just comes up with people talking about Ange Postecoglou. You're not playing Wraith Rovers in Scotland anymore. That's like the baseline for fans outside of Scotland of like, your league's a joke. Like, you're playing Wraith Rovers and you're scudding them 3-0. Like,
Seems to be, for some reason, it's Wraith Rovers and St Mirren are the other one. And it's like St Mirren actually had like a pretty decent record against Ange Postecoglou's Celtic. The one team he struggled to beat. Which would stick in your craw if you were them.
I was going to say, we also didn't play Ange Postecoglou's Celtic, did we?
Yeah, we
Twice,
did.
twice in the same season.
Twice in the same season.
Oh,
League
yeah,
Cup
of course.
Scottish Cup.
Of course. I was thinking that was the Ange, but yeah.
It was both 3-0 as well.
I think it says a lot about our attitude to those games that you've just memory hold them completely. I get the feeling that by Sunday we might be doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
Just like,
I was at both as well, that's the worst bit.
Never talk about that again. But let's talk about it now, at least, for a little bit.
Aye.
It's kind of difficult to come up with questions for this, to be fair. Leslie, I'm going to give you I was going to say the difficult one. This is not a difficult question. Can you realistically see a path to victory?
No. Next question.
Well, I take the word
I'll
realistically
elaborate on
out of that. Will that help?
I think the gap. I think, like you were just saying, it certainly feels like, and financially it probably is true, the gap between Celtic and then to a lesser extent Rangers and then everybody else has just got bigger and bigger in the last 5 to 10 years, and you can't really see like the kind of defeat that happened to Clyde or the Super Caligo ballistic game. You just can't really see stuff like that happening anymore. I think the gap has got so big. I mean, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, fair play to Falkirk because they actually went and they gave Celtic a good go, but ultimately, even then, Celtic just had the depth of quality to be able to bring guys on and blow them away in the end. So I think it's very difficult to actually just see when, like we're just saying, you've got £1.2 million goalkeepers on the bench, and when you've got this gap that's getting bigger and bigger, it's hard to see how you actually go about it. And I think if you're Barry Robson, how do you set up? Do you sort of effectively treat it as a kind of, I don't want to call it a training exercise, but do you effectively just set out to try and contain them for as long as you can? Or do you think, right, we're going to go and we're going to give it a really good go for 15 minutes or until we concede the first goal? I just don't know how you approach it when you're playing a team that are so strong at their own ground.
Yeah, I don't have a clue. Like, you really don't. I mean, the point you made there about it being more difficult to see a Clyde or a Cali Thistle or something, I think is absolutely spot on. And actually, I think it's largely thanks to Scottish football clubs, and actually wider football clubs across the world, just being turkeys voting for Christmas. They keep introducing rules that make it tougher to win games when you're the underdog. The fact that you get 5 subs now is an absolute nightmare for a game like this. An absolute nightmare. Because we don't realistically have 5 subs who are at the same level as our starting 11. Like Celtic do. And certainly if they don't have 5 subs who are at the same level as our starting 11, they've got 5 subs who are at a higher level than, 10 other clubs in their own division, let alone clubs in ours. VAR is another one that, I really hope it's... let's be honest, the chances of it being the single incident that defines this game is pretty slim. I hope it's not, because I don't really want to talk about it. But to try and just get that out of the way, that's another one where, like, as I said to you there, like, can you imagine a path to victory? 10 years ago, you'd be like, well, okay, maybe we'll get a penalty out of nothing. Like, I'm thinking of that Scottish Cup semi-final where Josh Meekings just punched the ball away. They had like 7 referees for that game and none of them saw it. And I recognise that part of that is me basically advocating for, like, hopefully we can effectively, if not cheat, at least like get away with not having to play by the rules briefly. But like, your revenue's 60 times ours, so we should be given a penalty to start with. It is. The further we go into the kind of quote-unquote modern game, the harder it is to turn over a result like that. Because you're getting further and further away from just 2 sets of 11 guys who've come together to play a game, and the gulf is just bigger and bigger, and it's harder to try and to bring that. What they're squeezing out of the game is the amount of it that's down to luck. And like, luck is our best player for Saturday, effectively. And the degree of luck you would need now is much bigger than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
But you never know, though, eh?
Well, exactly. This is why we're still here.
Know.
And this is why...
It's the beauty of football.
That's why we bought tickets for Saturday, because, like, it is that. It's anything can happen. It won't.
Do you know the thing is, bookies wouldn't exist. Bookies literally wouldn't exist if the best team won every week. They wouldn't. Because you would just be able to pick the better team wins. That's not how football works. It just isn't. And so I'm going to Celtic Park on Saturday for a comfy seat and a free lunch in the vain hope... I mentioned that. But in the vain hope that it'll be Ibrox with Christian Nadi. Do you know what I mean? It'll be Pittodrie with Taddy. Like, it can happen. It probably won't, but it could. And I tell you right now, I'll be there if it does. Like, love it.
Robbie, are we being too defeatist in the sense of, it will be defeated, obviously, but is this? Thinking back to like previous games we've gone to Celtic Park, for whatever reason, it seems like when we go to Ibrox, it seems more attainable somehow. But
aye, but that's because Rangers are a laughing stock. Like,
oh no,
they are. Like, come on, give it the last.
But we're not meant to say it out loud. Remember, come on.
Look, there's nobody staunch tuning into this podcast. Let's be honest.
They've got algorithms. There'll be somebody with an algorithm tuning in, like Bait Alert or something like that, and they'll get a beep on their phone, like, someone has just made a joke about Rangers. To the comments. Hello, 1872.
Burn it down.
Aye, they are though. If we're being brutally honest, they are. Whereas Celtic are like a slick, well-run organisation. Look, I mean, you've just got to be realistic about it. It's going to be a very, very tough ask. We're effectively Buster Douglas with the flu against Mike Tyson, going in against an absolute killing savage machine. It's really hard. I think that the one thing is that for the players, as I said it before, when the draw was made, you've got a lot of players that are probably, safe to say, in the twilight years of their career. You've got a few younger lads as well, the likes of your Kai Montagues and Lewis Gibsons, where it might be the first opportunity to really go and play at a level like this or against players like this. So what an opportunity for them. And again, your Aidan Marshes, George Coutts as well, coming in from England and potentially being able to come into a squad and start a game up at Celtic Park. That's something that they wouldn't have really envisioned. Well, I don't know, obviously Coutts would have been, I think, after the cup draw. But yeah, I think really it's just got to be about enjoying the occasion. And if we do get a goal and if we get something to cling on to, you never know. You obviously hope for that, but you've got to be pragmatic about it and that you remember Jota's exists, basically. And plus all the other players that they've got that are ridiculously good. But that's, again, I know that you're saying it's sort of like modern football, but I'm going to guess it's always been that way. Like right back, since you look all the way back, probably since about the 60s or 70s, that these clubs have just hoovered up the majority of the talent across Scotland or abroad. It's obviously the scouting's become better and better and better as time's gone by, more accessible markets. You chuck in Brexit as well, which makes it a nightmare for us to sign foreign players compared to them who can get them through the door no problem. Yeah, it's just, as you say, I think you're right in saying that the game is obviously in the favour of Celtic, but as it should be. They've got, 60, 70,000 season ticket holders, however many it is. I've probably added on an extra 10,000 or so anyway. But fan base worldwide, that income that they get, the European money, you'd be dishonest if you went, we're being defeatist. But you're just being realistic about it.
Scott, bearing all that in mind, does this game ultimately, let's take as our assumption that we do get beat, right? Does it matter the manner of that defeat?
As long as it's not double figures, I would say. I mean, last night, obviously, like, me and Blair are into hockey and stuff, so the Flyers are having one of their worst seasons ever in the Elite League. And last night they were like 6-0 down or 5-0 down in like 9 minutes. Last night, you're going, this could be anything. If as long as Glasgow want it to be, it's going to be the same as Celtic on Saturday. I think it's literally, if we can, it'll be the case that if you can, Robson's going to have to tell the squad, look, if you can get through 10-minute periods without conceding goals, that's going to, it's like going back to kids football. If you're against like top of the league and you know they're miles better than you, and they just go, right, if you can get 10 minutes, you technically have scored. Like, that's the way that they're going to count it, is like, it's just going to have to go into 10-minute periods, basically, of can we just stop them for that 10-minute period? Right, next 10-minute period, let's get through that. But yeah, I think we've seen just
your first minute penalty.
we've also just seen last night. We've just seen that Celtic are putting 6 past teams in their own league. So if we went there and lost 6-0, well, at the end of the day, Dundee have just went and done it. So it's actually no. Yes, it's not going to be good viewing for us, but at the same time, somebody's done it in their own league. So, if anything, Celtic should be beating us 6-0 on paper. But, yeah, I don't think, unless, as I say, if it came out 10, that's when I'll start questioning things. But I don't think I don't think you can question anything else if it is like 5.
You're going to get a twitchy arse if it hits 9, eh?
It's the half-time. It's the fan bingo card though. You're going to get the showing them too much respect. That's going to get mentioned at some point. Standing off them way too much. Like, come on, it's what it is. But you've just got to go and do your job. Like,
plus Dundee are letting in 6 for fun at the moment as well. So I mean, it might not just be a Celtic thing.
And you get all this, like, there is effectively there's no blueprint for how to do it, because like Falkirk got a lot of praise, and rightly so, for kind of going out and having a go and getting in their faces. But that was what Dundee did as well. Like, Dundee played 2 strikers to try and go and sort of try and do that thing. And it is effectively, how long can you go before you can actually put a little bit of doubt in their mind? Because if you can do that, you might have half a chance. But if you do it and they score very early, then you're chasing it yourself, and that's where you can get caught out. And I was just saying before we came on as well, the other thing against playing sides of this quality is you can do everything right and it doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
Yeah.
It was the last time that, I think certainly the last time I was at Celtic Park was the game that Alan Walker scored.
Yeah.
And the Rovers had done everything right. We're doing really, really well, kind of keeping Celtic at bay. And Chris Commons was just like, I'm fed up of this. I just rifled the ball in the top corner for 30 yards. And it really was. Like, he basically just like, right, I'm just going to drop deep. I'm going to get this ball. I'm going to turn around, kick it in the goal. And then we can just all get back to enjoying our evening. And it's that kind of thing that, you know, you can see Callum McGregor doing that. You know, the Rovers have had a really good half hour, first 10 minutes, and we've kind of kept them out. They've not created many chances.
3-0 Rovers.
And it takes 2 yards of space, and you've got somebody who's just got that technical ability that, you know, with all due respect, you're not going to run up against when you're playing Hamilton Accies and Dunfermline and Livingston. But so there's definitely...
I was just thinking there, sorry Duncan to interrupt, 2 different games, was it not?
It
The
could
game
well
that
be, to be fair, they kind of merged
I was just
together in
thinking,
my mind.
it was when you were going through that, the game that Alan Walker scored was the game that it was Gary Hooper just went back in Tonto and scored 4.
Has he scored 4?
Right.
Aye.
Yeah.
Commons scored
Commons
the night
ones
it was
at
played in
starts.
the McRae's battalion top, actually.
Yeah.
I think we lost 2-0. 2-0. Craig
Aye.
Whiting was up front that night.
Shivers
Shiver.
down the spine. I'll wait till
Yeah, it was the 2-0 game.
Should have scored that night too.
But Les is also right. He did score at Starks as well. Because I think
It was a
James
penalty, it should have
Forrest
been a
scored
penalty.
that game.
It was also him that moaned about the smell of the pitch at Starks.
Yes.
Yeah, the pitch was in atrocious condition. I remember being in the stand and my Dundee United supporter mate just texted me. This is before like YouTube and replays and data, and he's just like, WTF, Commons is a diving bass. So that's when you know my mate at home says it maybe wasn't a penalty.
So that, at least if I suppose VAR could work in our favour. I've never really considered that as a possibility, that it might actually
Come on.
help us.
How many
I think
seconds?
Even
when
if
we
it
were at,
should, it won't.
when we were at Ibrox, I think was possibly the first time that the Rovers had played in a game with VAR.
Yeah, it was.
Rangers had a corner that came in, was cleared, and then you just popped up on the board, and you're like, I see how this works. And as that incident didn't come to anything, but you're like, right, okay. I see how this is going to go.
But also at the same time, you wouldn't want to end up in a situation like St Mirren against Rangers in that cup final, where Rangers were down to, what was it, 9 men or something stupid like
9
that,
men.
and you think off, and then they lose it in extra time. Like, it was just, I wonder how many men like Celtic would need to have sent off to stop dominating games like the other night. It's just.
Just the goalie that's been signed by 1.2 million against us.
Aye.
Just thinking back to that. I was trying to remember who it was that got sent off at Celtic Park. It was Zanata.
Aye, so
He got booked twice in 5 minutes.
Aye.
One was probably for mouthing off, and the other one was probably for diving or something.
Just being shit.
Me and my pal went along to that game, and it's the most, like, this was when, like, away fans were still locked out, and it's just different experience. Like, the ball would go out with a misplaced pass for Celtic, and their fans were, like, genuinely upset about it. And I'm like, me and my mate are like, that's quite funny, eh? Like, we see that all the time. Like, just...
Well, they want their CEO chased because they didn't sign another striker in this window. Now, first of all, welcome to our world. And second of all, like, you're in the next round of the Champions League and you're playing Bayern Munich. It doesn't matter which striker you buy, because it's effectively it's this dynamic where, like, we could have brought in Robbie, to cite your favourite. We could have brought in Tommy Adeloye in the window, assuming he's fit and not work shy for whatever reason. It wouldn't make it. We're still not going to beat Celtic, and that's the same thing there. But they want chased. Like, you're in the whatever it is, the last 16 of the Champions League. Yes,
We
could bring in Dyson Maeda. We'll still know the end on Saturday.
I was Sunday League stuff. Actually, we're a man short. Could we just have one of yours?
I was going to say, because they're getting upset, aren't they, that Maeda might start at centre forward. But that's what Japan do with Maeda. They basically use him like we use Lewis Jameson, to just go and chase everything down. The difference being when he's on international duty, he's got Mitoma behind him and not Finlay Pollock, which does help a bit. But
Oh dear.
I just want to fact check myself something I said a minute ago that Celtic's turnover is about 60 times hours. I was wrong. It's actually 124 times hours. So, you know,
I wonder
It's
how
just-
many pie sales
it's-
they're
It's
getting.
only just 60 times more than like half of the top flight.
Yeah.
aye, exactly. Right, I tell you what, let's have a quick break and then we will come back and we will mastermind some starting 11s to get us a result at Celtic Park. Blair,
Yes, mate.
you're a man
Yes.
and you have thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Yes.
Are you good at talking about all that stuff?
Well, I try my best, but I don't know. Probably not as much as I should.
I'm the same. I feel better after getting stuff like that off my chest, but I don't do it anywhere near often enough. Have you heard about Andy's Man Club?
They're brilliant. They create a safe space for men to sit down and talk about the important stuff. And they do it right across the country as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've got more than 200 meetings across the UK, and it's every Monday night at 7 o'clock, including one at Starks Park.
And if anyone wants more information on it, they can go to andysmanclub.co.uk or search for Andy's Man Club on Facebook. It's okay to talk, and now we're going to get back to talking about the Rovers.
So let's get into starting 11s then. A little bit of a departure from normal. I think we've all got our favourites for the kind of championship games that we normally talk about. Suspect we might see a slight variation in terms of formations and personnel here. Scott, let's start with you. I know you normally prefer a 4-2-3-1, as do I. What are we looking at for Saturday?
So for this game, I already know that anybody that's listening or whatever will probably just question most of this team, but
Good start.
it's not going to be the usual because of course who we're playing. But at the same time, this team that I'm putting together, I would never ever even dream about putting together for a championship game. Like, it's purely down to the fact that who we're playing is the
I
simple.
really hope. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. I really hope this is the sort of tenor of Barry Robson's team talk as well. This is the 11. Now listen, you're not going to like it. I would never do it normally. Sorry, on you go.
Scarred by past
But
experiences.
you could look at either as a sort of 5-3-2 or a 5-2-1-2 sort of thing. But so I've kept Kev in goals. As I say, we've brought in Josh Rae, but right now I would literally just be saying to Kev, look, it is literally your jersey, but you've now got competition basically, so you need to keep it, sort of thing. I would be bringing in, on the sort of right wing back, I'd be bringing in George Gitau for a game. Now, he's not played any football since he's came up to us. He's still only actually technically been in the door, 2 weeks or something? But I would have liked to have seen a little bit when we were 3-0 up at Hamilton, but it never happened. At the end of the day, we are not going to get judged on this game, like, by most folk. Everybody knows that we're likely going to get a scudding, whoever's playing where. So I just think that Gitau probably needs to get minutes in his legs. Andy's probably just going off like the little clips that you've seen, he looks quite pacey. So, and we don't really have a right wing back that's pacey outside of him. So I think if they've got whoever it is, Kuhn, Jota, keep listing the names of running down that left side, they're going to be very fast, whoever it is. So I would go with him, and then I would have my sort of three in the centre as Doherty on the right, Hanlon in the middle, and then I would actually have Ewan Murray at the left side of that. Again, it's just three guys that probably are going to do all right. I know they're not going to lump loads of balls in the air, but any balls that do come into the box, hopefully they can deal with them. And then I've got Liam Dick at left wing back. Again, I would rather just have a more stay-at-home sort of full-back, wing-back at that position. Now, this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. I've gone with Lewis Stevenson in midfield for this.
All right, okay.
I would like to see him and Ross Matthews at the sort of base, as I say, like a 5-2-1-2. him and Stevenson and Matthews as the two. I think that Stevenson can play that role. I've seen him play it for Hibs, and he played it quite well in terms of being a sort of guy that just gets stuck in and is a bit of a menace in the midfield. At the end of the day, I think you're not going to see us having more than probably 20% of the ball. So I think you would rather get somebody in there that can tackle, that's a bit feisty and can get stuck in, basically. And then I would actually play Bruni in front of them that's kind of more pressing on to try and put a sort of press on when they kind of get into our half sort of thing. And then I've actually just went a bit more gung-ho and just said Aidan Marsh and Gullen up top, basically. And they two just run about like mad to try and somehow cause a bit of havoc whilst Liam Scales is just pinging 40 yards passes about.
Just nae Dylan Easton.
Well, no. So that's my thing is, at the end of the day, we've got more important games the rest of the season. I didn't want him getting an injury in this game.
You imagine Dylan
What
Easton
an
turning up at
excuse.
Celtic Park, absolutely buzzing. He's like, Celtic Park, what a great opportunity. You're on the bench today, Dylan.
He's going to come up and score a free kick, though. That's fine.
That's fair. That's fair.
To make it 7-1.
Yeah. I quite like your midfield there, your sort of central midfield. Maybe more so for actually just sort of regular games again. I quite like that idea that Scott Brown's just pushed a little bit further forward. I think we're missing somebody
Sean Byrne
in there. Yeah. Leslie, how are you approaching this one?
Not that differently as Scott in terms of shape. I think Josh Rae starts in goals. Again, like I say, I think he's been brought into play. I think the timing of when he was brought in speaks volumes too. It's not like we're bringing up a kid who's come up from Bristol City or somebody who's coming from the Faroe Islands. He's played in the Premier League at Celtic Park and conceded goals, but we'll gloss over that bit. So I think Josh Rae comes in. Defensively, I think we have probably more of a back five than a back three. I think we have Lewis Stevenson at left back. I've got Dick, Hanlon and Docherty in the centre, and I've also got Guitau at the kind of right wing back. I think Barry Robson seems like the kind of guy who's not going to kind of radically change his shape because it's Celtic. I think he's probably kind of thinking about the season as a whole and is probably going to think, well, this is just what we're going to play so that everybody knows what their role is when they come in. In the midfield, I've got Brown and Matthews at the base. Then I've got Easton probably a bit further forward. I think he will start because if we somehow get a free kick or something like that, you want him on the pitch to take it. You know, if it's one of the only chances we've got to get a goal, either from him just shooting or from something delivered so well that Liam Dick or Paul Hanlon get their head in it. And up top, I have got Gullen and Pollock. I think Pollock will be told to just go and run at things. And again, Gullen is somebody you probably want to have an option at a set piece. I do think Aidan Marsh is going to come on. And I do think Aidan Marsh is going to score the winner. And the interview is going to break Tinternet.
Yeah. I really hope so, mate. I really hope so. Blair, who are you hoping to see
So,
from your ivory tower?
from the comfy seats. So I'm kind of going back and I'm thinking this might not be a game where Robson's experience is going to come to fruition as much as Colin Cameron's. So Colin Cameron once played in a game for Raith Rovers in Iceland, and we fielded a 6-3-1 that day. And actually, there's a bit. Thing is, it depends on how you play it. It's either a 6-3-1 or it's basically a 4-5-1. But either way, you effectively play four centre halves. And you bear with me for a second. Quite narrow, four centre halves instead of a back three, and then your wing backs. But your wing backs are effectively your midfielders. So you bear with me for a second. Doherty on the right hand side, Hanlon and Murray in the middle, Dick on the left. And yes, I've got Kevin goals. Now, Stevenson is the left wing back. The right wing back, to be perfectly honest with you, at this point, it could be anybody. I've written Mullen. I mean, it could be Connolly. I'm not convinced it's going to be Gatow. I think it's a bit harsh to throw him into a game where you're likely to get absolutely pumped for his debut. Like, I think that's maybe a bit much. Brown and Matthews in the base, Easton in front of him, and Gullen up front on his own, miles away from open play. Yeah.
I can't believe that Scott felt like he had to kind of preface his with an explanation, and you're playing Josh Mullen on the right of a 6.
But when you're coming out with the ball, which we will obviously do regularly, it basically slots back into what is effectively a 4. It's almost a 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1. Like, your wing backs just become your midfielders. But let's be perfectly honest, if you play a 4-4-2, your 2 wide midfielders are going to basically be defending for most of the 90 minutes. So why not set up in a formation that actually caters for it? It's better than a 4-6-0.
Sure. Okay. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but I would be intrigued to see how it went if it did. Robbie, who's in your back 6, please, mate?
6. Overrated. Back 4. 4-2-3-1. Why not? Kevin goals. Stevenson left back. I'd actually play Gatow. Dick and Hanlon as the centre backs. I would chuck Doherty in as a sort of holding midfielder next to Matthews. And yeah, I really don't care in terms of with regards to like the actual lineup. Like Montague, Gibson, Easton, Marsh. Just chuck them in. Sentimentality. I'm not taking this completely serious.
Really?
This lineup exercise. So yes. I would throw in the guys that are a few younger guys that, as I say, just the experience for it would be good. It was really, you look back and everyone talks about Ross Matthews' first start, was it, at Celtic Park, in terms of his history. Why not offer the same in terms of almost experience for Montague, just in terms of him getting that time under his belt in such a big game. So yeah, I would be looking at probably change it up, play a few of the younger lads, but not taking this exercise particularly seriously, shall we say.
Okay, fair enough. So I've got I've basically just modified what we've been doing to make it much more defensive, effectively. So it's a back 5, but slightly different from what we've heard already. So I've got Murray, Hanlon and Dick restored as the kind of central 3. And I've got Jordan Doherty back out to sort of right back, effectively. Because it's, as you said, Blair, you're not really a wing back, are you? Not in the sense that, like, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we were saying, like, oh, Jordan Doherty's playing wing back, you know, he's sound defensively, but he's not getting forward as much. That's fine. For Saturday, totally fine. Defensive solidity's grand. Same for Lewis Stevenson. So I'm quite happy with that. Sort of 3 central defenders and then 2, as I say, you call them wing backs if you want, but effectively full backs. I've got Matthews and Brown as my midfield 2. And then I've got Connolly and Easton as sort of orthodox wide players, effectively. So because Doherty and Stevenson aren't going to be getting out as much, I think you've got the room to play wide players. Hopefully help you kind of spread the game a little bit, give you a couple of out balls, and I've got Gullen up front to run about as much as he wants. I'm quite happy for him to run channels. That's totally fine. I think you can make arguments for other guys to go in there. So I think you could say Mullen could go into that right wing slot ahead of Connolly. Very good deliveries. That might be something that's going to make a difference.
Could be
Pollock's running about again. I suspect, based on how he's been used so far, that Finlay Pollock will start this one as well, to try and put Celtic under some sort of pressure. But how much of a kind of fool's errand that is, I suppose, proof will be in the pudding. George Gatow,
I kind of hope he's not. Just going to say, I kind of hope he's not. Like I said before, like the Falkirk thing, you can get at them. Like, yeah, they like to play football, but you give them loads of time, they look good. Like, I don't think you need to give Celtic a lot of time to look good. Like, I think that might be a bit of a fool's errand. Finlay Pollock just running about chasing boys.
I don't think there's any sense in trying to go and,
Barry ball them.
meet them where they live. Like, you're going to have to just soak up the pressure, try and get out when you can. We've not got enough of the guys to be able to do it effectively, even if you did think that was the way to go. I think Falkirk kind of caught them cold a little bit when they did it early in the season, and they were still, relatively comfortably beaten in the end. George Gatow, I think, is an interesting one, but not for me, for Celtic Park, for throwing a guy in for his debut. Like, I mean, partly, we've literally no idea if he's any use or not, so that's one thing. But also, I just feel like that's plenty of other games for guys to be making their debuts in. This is, I think you need to give yourself the best chance. As much as, we've been very glib, and as much as it is, 99 times against one that you might be able to go and do something, you've got to try and go and do something, put out the best team. So, as I say, there is no blueprint for it. There are a dozen different ways you could try to lay out a side and come up with a strategy for this. And 98 times out of 100, it wouldn't even matter which one you picked. But I think you've got to go out and give yourself the best chance. And again, it will be really interesting to see what Barry Robson does. It'll be a real insight into his approach. And Les, as you said, like, how much is he going to depart from what he has been doing? And is it going to be a specific anti-Celtic strategy, or is it going to be, this is how we play and here's how we're adapting it for this particular game? So definitely interesting to see how it all develops. And ultimately, the game of football between two sides, anything could happen. I'm absolutely certain that the players, internally, they'll not be as defeatist as we've been. There'll be a lot of confidence in there by this time. They'll have spent this week, really getting themselves into that frame of mind that, at kickoff, they'll think they can do it. Could be a goal down inside 2 minutes. Who knows? Wouldn't it be the first time? But it's there to be, they're there to be shot at effectively. So we'll see what happens. And I think we'll have a good laugh.
They deserve it after the last round. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They deserve the opportunity to go out and enjoy themselves. And especially after a derby game, which was a really tough loss to take. Like, as I say, I know Scott mentioned it earlier, cliche bingo chat, but it is a free hit. It's puncher's chance, and you just go out and see what happens.
If anything, the 2,500 will enjoy themselves, and obviously the club have done that thing with the dry gate as well, with the shambolics and stuff playing at it as well. So I'm sure that'll be actually a right good laugh and a good atmosphere as well before the game. It's good of them to do it. So I think the whole day in general will just be a good day out for the club, to be honest.
Trying to find out if there's a way I can just switch Blair off from here.
Wait. Actually, I was going to say, just a caveat to all of this, there is a small worry for me that it destroys. Like, you're talking about confidence and stuff. Like, if we go out there and we get absolutely embarrassed, and you have to be honest, it is completely possible that could happen. There is a danger that it kind of takes a week or two to get over, and they carry that kind of with them. You've just got to hope that no matter what happens, they go out there, they give a decent account of themselves, and they get a good reception for the Rovers fans, and they come away from it, whatever the scoreline is, but they come away from it with their heads held high, with a bit of confidence that actually for 20 minutes, half an hour, however long it takes, they went toe-to-toe with the best team in Scotland, and they kind of acquitted themselves well. Do you know what I mean? In the best sense that they could. That's the hope.
This is it. And I think I said it yesterday. I was talking about it, that for some reason, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Celtic's sort of dominance. I don't know if it's because they won 6-0 last night or the night before or whenever it was, or if because we get beat at the weekend. But like I feel like it's like Fraserburgh going to Ibrox for some reason. For some reason, it feels like there's this huge gulf that maybe there hasn't been before. And there's not. I mean, in a lot of senses, obviously there are. But at the same time, somebody, said it a minute ago, like Josh Rae, until 4 days ago, was a Premiership footballer. He was in the same division. There's plenty of guys in the squad who've played Premiership football before, been to Celtic Park before, had results against them. It's not...
Our manager played for them.
Yeah, exactly. You're not talking about, as I say, like a non-league side going, and it would be like fairy tale of the cup stuff. It would be a cup upset by, a long way, but it's not like unheard of stuff. It wouldn't immediately go into that bracket of like one of the 5 most amazing things that's ever happened. It would go into the bracket below that of like big cup shocks, but you're not even really talking on the level of like Celtic against Aberdeen against Darvel or anything like that. There's not that same, certainly in terms of league placings. But
and the stars are aligned. Sorry, just going to say stars are aligned a little bit in the sense that they are off the back of a really big win. They have got a really big European tie coming up, and it is a home tie against a team that's in and out of form in the league below them. There is by absolutely
just the stars of reverse psychology.
No, but I mean in terms of the lineup, like there's very little chance that they're going to put out
we're really,
anybody.
really reaching here.
No, but they're not going to put out anybody who's significantly important for the Bayern Munich game. They're just not going to risk them. Why would they? They don't need to. They've got a big enough squad. So you've got to hope that it's going to be a relatively second-string team. And with that in mind, you never know. Like, they don't gel, they don't follow the system, whatever it is, they've not played for a few weeks, whatever it happens to be. I know there is... Who's the one that's suspended for the Bayern game?
Maeda. Speedy Gonzalez, aye.
Yeah, so he's probably going to play. But other than him, like, do you risk Jota? I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is the 11 guys behind the first 11 are still fine.
They are,
But just briefly, I'm glad you mentioned it, Scott. I think that thing with the Drygate, maybe I'm just not paying enough attention, but I can't think of seeing anything like that from anyone else. Like, I'm not aware of a team, certainly not a second tier side, going away for a cup game and putting on an event, in the other place.
Yeah.
That's really a really cool thing to do. Just again, I know we mentioned it right at the start that, like, when the team's getting beat, people just criticise anything, and people save up the stuff they want to criticise if we're on a good run, so that when we get beat, they can be like, I don't like the colour that the pie stall's been painted or whatever. But it's another thing that, not only have you not seen that from previous administrations or whatever you want to call it, you're not seeing that from anybody else either. So credit where it's due. I think it's a very good idea. Hopefully it's well executed. I'm sure it will be. And everybody that paid for a ticket to get to go enjoys themselves.
Excuse me.
That was aimed at you. Shut up. Any final points? Anything anybody else wants to throw in on Celtic versus Wraith Rovers for Saturday?
Good to see sponsors on that Club 1883 strip. I did enjoy the slightly tongue-in-cheek comment from Tiger Driver of Pine Bovril, commenting that it was unfair that Dean Park had their name in a larger size than anyone else. After all the greeting, well. I thought that was very, very good. I chuckled at that one.
I really like the new strip, I have to say. Really like
me
it.
Too. It's being very nicely modelled for us by Les, for anyone who's on the video. Right, I tell you what, let's do Should McStay or Should Dargo, because I have prepared it this evening on the back of my glorious victory last time out. You could argue I was only up against one other person, and you could also argue I just guessed, but doesn't matter because I was right.
A damn good guess, to be fair.
I could hear the rustle of pens and paper already, and the whirring of cogs inside brains.
Got my map ready as well, so got maps and things here, and cheat sheets and crib sheets in front of me.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing too geographic in this one. I've decided to leave that to one side. Now, clue 1.
You're not used to this, are you?
No, I'm not. I was like, wait for someone else to start, and I was like, no, it's me. Clue number 1. If we can trust that celebrity supporters are always watching their team, I have been cheered on by Baywatch's David Hasselhoff, Home and Away and now Hollywood's Isla Fisher, the Labour Party's Gordon Brown, Electropop's Calvin Harris, and Young Sheldon.
Young Sheldon?
Yeah, it's actually
The
the
kid that
actor who
plays-
plays Young Sheldon. I've forgotten his name. I didn't write it down. Ian.
There's no way he supports a football team.
It'll be somebody in the States. You would think it would be somebody in the States, which makes me think this is somebody
Lewis
that at some point in their
Shit, what?
Ian Armitage is his name. And he
Ian
plays Young
Armitage.
Sheldon.
Isla Fisher. That rings a bell on a Scottish football team for some stupid reason, though.
So does the Hoff. The Hoff
Yeah.
has got a connection with some Scottish football team.
I've heard the one with Hasselhoff as well,
Who
but I
does
can't
Calvin
remember.
Harris support?
Well, Calvin
That's
Sadly,
right.
don't want to be
maybe
Queen
say
of the
Queen of
South,
the-
even though he's Fred Dumfries.
No.
Hasselhoff's Partick Thistle, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I thought it might have been Partick, but I wasn't 100%
It
certain
seems
of
a
that.
bit obvious, though, doesn't it? Like some students would have tweeted at him or something, and but you might be right there. Yeah.
Calvin Harris, no, one of the Edinburgh teams. See, maybe Hibs or something.
Could be. Could also just be Celtic or something.
So I'm going to just to kind of flesh this out a little bit. All of them I have seen pictured in like the club gear. Actually, except for Gordon Brown. I don't know if I've ever seen Gordon Brown actually in club gear.
Seen him kick a football, though, at Starch Park.
His
Or is
name's
that-
not
that
here.
very kind of-
His name is where like kind of like abdomen should be.
He's the reverse then. He's not been in the club gear, but he is on the club gear.
Now, bearing in mind
Calvin
that
Harris,
this
to be
is...
fair, Calvin Harris, I've not seen photographed in this team's jersey, but it is a very notable link. You know, if you
was
go
gonna
to
say-
Google who does Calvin Harris support, you will get this answer.
It sounds
not.
like it's going to be Queen of the South. Like, it's a Rovers player. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe
This is a player
Carlisle.
who's played for Wraith. Are they in any kind of order, by the way, Duncan?
No,
was that sneaky?
No, that was not. They're not in the order that this player played for them.
We actually got any guesses?
So you say Lewis Jameson?
Yeah, I went for Jameson, but it won't be him.
I'm going for Dario Zanata.
Ooh.
Not a clue. Dan O'Reilly.
Liam Buchanan.
All right. Clue number 2. I share my name with the 8th Governor-General of Australia, one of the 25 most influential Conservatives in Canadian federal politics, an inventor who failed to make something called pneumatic shoes, and the Scottish Member of Parliament for Edinburgh Shire between 1686 and 1745.
I'll go for John Baird.
Or Dario Zanata, anyway.
That was really what I was hoping would happen there, was that someone would have picked a name that was really kind of obscure. Not obscure, you know what I mean? That
So it won't be a French Canadian either, so I can get all my cult heroes in the bin, unfortunately, unless there was a governor called Sasha in the 17th century.
John Baird play for Queen of the South?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he went to.
I
He was at
was
Partick
more
as well.
questioning, did he play for Partick?
He played for Partick. He had a really unfruitful spell there in the top flight. And he was also at Dundee as well. So,
Well, he was at loads at Montrose and that as well.
Greenock
But
Morton.
I didn't remember him at Partick though. That was the only one that I didn't know.
It would fit well the names as well, because it's an old typey name, isn't it? John Baird.
Could see it on
I'm going with
a
the-
headstone in Edinburgh walking around the.
Yeah, I
Some of the
feel like
graveyards there.
Robbie's got this already.
I'm going with Willie Dyer.
Oh, I hope it's Willie.
Nick
Dyer.
makes the worst Rovers team that I've seen.
You want the next clue?
Yes, please.
I am currently playing as a central midfielder, but I did not play there for the Rovers.
That'll be John Baird.
Is he actually still playing for that team?
Yeah, he's
Yes,
player
I mean,
manager, I
it's-
think, is he not? Or player
Or
coach.
league in Australia, so.
Yeah, he's a player. He's the manager, and he has Lee Griffiths on his coaching staff.
Just nicking bottles of Lucozade.
Lobbing
Oh, I
flares at kangaroos.
Who does
Any
Isla
other-
Fisher support that John
Just to
Baird's
keep-
played for?
Just to keep
That's
things
why-
interesting, keep it running, I'm going to guess Johnny Russell.
Oh, so we had Partick, Queen of the South. That's young Sheldon. What the fuck? See if it turns out he's like a
One of
Greenock
them's
Morton
going to
fan.
somehow be a
It'll be
Montrose
Chris Duggan.
fan.
Do you want the next clue?
Yeah.
I played 121 times for Wraith Rovers.
Sounds about right.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
I've
does.
clearly got in my head that Robbie's got this right. I just wrote down, I played 120 games for John Baird.
I'll give you the next one as well. So the inventor who failed with his pneumatic shoes went on to have a much, much more successful invention.
That would be the telly.
Which would be a TV. Aye.
Clue number 6. You may have watched me on that invention scoring the winning goal in a cup final. Well done, Robbie. Well done.
How did you get that, Robbie? I'm sorry. How did you get that so quick?
Just John Baird, the Hoff Partick Thistle, who's played for Partick Thistle. You mentioned Queen of the South as well. He had that there. Aye. And
I feel like,
as you say, it's an old-timey name.
It's an old type of name as well, yeah.
I feel like a Scooby-Doo villain. Like, I think anybody else, from everybody who's ever on the podcast, if Robbie wasn't here, I would have gotten away with that. Like, I would have got an extra couple of clues out of that at least. I
Well, put it this way, I didn't know he played for Partick, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
I couldn't remember him playing for Queen of the South either. I thought that was a little
No, I
misdirect.
can't remember that.
Nah, I can remember seeing him in the Queen still.
Right, so Calvin Harris has
Right,
to be
aye,
clean.
Steve-
Sorry, I've still not been past this.
Isla Fisher.
The Hoff-
Right.
the
Right, sorry,
Hoff
let
is
me give you them in
Partick.
order. So David Hasselhoff is Partick Thistle.
Yep.
I actually can't remember what the kind of genesis of that was, but there are multiple photographs of him wearing a Thistle jersey. He's at Edinburgh Castle. He's in Ashton Lake. He's all over the place, and he's wearing his
See-
Thistle jersey.
Isla Fisher.
Yes.
Is it? What is it? Dundee or Dundee United? I remember there being there's a stupid photograph of her.
Yeah. It's Dundee.
Is it Dundee? Aye.
Because I think her parents are both from Dundee, and I think she
Oh,
maybe
right,
moved
okay.
to Australia when she was like 6 or something
Yeah.
like. In fact, no, maybe even older than that. But there's a photo of her at like a supporters event in a Dundee jersey.
It was more actually, to be honest, as well. See with her, the Australia did actually push me as well towards John Baird. Like just thinking, actually that's
It supports the
potential.
team he plays in the 4th division.
Well, it obviously wasn't that, but you're
I like
thinking
today.
you never know. Like it's
I can't remember what that team's called now. It's
Mandurah City.
Mandura City.
Mandura
I
City.
I did earlier on today Google Mandura City celebrity fans. There's none. If you Google that, what you get is Lee Griffiths got in a fight with a Mandura City fan, and that's the only news articles that appear for that. So
Is
I would have
that
used
the
that.
team? I remember seeing that. He had a proper ding dong with a boy. Is that the team he's still
Same
with?
team, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Actually, they play in black and white stripes, which was a rejected clue from part of that game. I'd written the clues out, and I was like, I think I've made these too difficult. And I'd started putting in more stuff, and then Robbie said, John, I was like, fucking take them all back out again. So we got halfway through there. Calvin Harris is Queen of the South. So it's on his Wikipedia page and their Wikipedia page. And he has wished them luck previous from his official Facebook page.
That's very much out the
Might
Guy
be decent
Berryman
control.
school of supporting, eh? Like, he's from there. We'll put it on Wikipedia.
Aye, somebody's sent him a DM being like, going to just put this up and say, good luck, please, we're in a Challenge Cup final or something. And the weirdest one, young Sheldon, Ian Armitage, who himself was born in Savannah, Georgia. His dad's from Falkirk. And there is a
He's a Falkirk fan.
Would never have got that.
Oh, jeez. We'll
there's
never
a
live
photo
that
of
down.
him wearing like a Falkirk hoodie. It's a really that like he himself has tweeted out. So see, you said like Snoop Dogg's a Celtic fan earlier on.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that apparently is just like Snoop Dogg owns a Celtic jersey. So but this kid apparently is really into Falkirk. I don't know how that's not better known, because
Totally.
if that was me, we'd have young Sheldon flags and stuff just for the patter alone.
I can only assume that this Ian Armitage guy is completely obsessed with attendances. Is that?
I mean, I can only assume so. I have to tell you, I've never seen young Sheldon. I don't know what.
It's actually
I
him that
have.
paid for the
Good.
disco lights.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so I thought that might not necessarily throw you off,
I
but
would
at least
never
confuse
got
you a little
that.
bit.
Never got that.
And then there's as if you Google John Baird, what you get is a whole load of historical figures. And I really thought I'd kind of buried that enough that you would have been thrown off, but I did not count on Robbie being here with his freakish ability to decode nonsense.
There's a Celtic fan that's just listened to this, like, why is McStay mentioned though? Like,
But the other thing is, apparently John Baird plays a central midfielder now. There's a little kind of profile for him for the start of this season, and it specifically says that he's, I think he's co-manager, and that he's dictating play from the midfield, which is really
centre
difficult to
midfielder who can
imagine.
also play up front. Bring him back. Get him in.
he probably would.
Right, excellent. Well done, Robbie. As always, you seem to be the dominant force in this game. Annoyingly, so we'll get Les back with his more obscure clues that have nothing to do with anything.
Oh no.
Try and keep you off the podium.
To be fair, when you lead with young Sheldon, David Hasselhoff, and who else did you have? Calvin
Isla
Harris
Fisher.
and Isla Fisher. Like, you've got obscure, mate. I think you're selling yourself short.
Originally, I thought I'd be able to do it with actors, and I was only going to put the characters' names in. Like
Knight
Michael
Rider.
Knight from Knight Rider, exactly.
Yeah.
But I realised I was wasting quite a lot of my life writing clues for that game, and pulled back a little bit. Right, thank you everybody for joining us. As always, we will see you on Saturday at Parkhead, possibly in the bars and breweries and buses as well. But regardless, whether it is a famous win or just a very narrow win, we will reconvene on Sunday. Have a good blather and try and get through it all together. So, as always, thank you for listening and goodbye.